Threats to school kids in Springfield, Ohio today following baseless claims about Haitian immigrants perpetuated by the former president and his running mate. Now the state's Republican governor, Mike DeWine, announced Ohio state troopers will be stationed throughout the Springfield City School District as a precaution. The announcement came after 2 elementary schools were evacuated. 6 in all have been threatened in the last week. 2 colleges today moved to virtual learning. And then there's this newly obtained video of the Proud Boys, so-called, marching through town this weekend. That's the thuggish group that took part in the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6. Again, all this because of threats linked to false claims about Haitian immigrants eating pets, fueled by the former president, Senator J.D. Vance. Vance was on CNN this weekend, where he defended his claims about Springfield.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to, create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast.
You just said that you're creating a story.
Public policy.
Sir, you just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you
Yes.
created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not accurate.
Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it.
I'm joined now by the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, says he and other officials have personally received threats. Mayor Ryu, I appreciate your time tonight. I'm sorry we're talking under these circumstances. You heard what Vance said this weekend. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, and if you could just talk about the threats that you have been experiencing in Springfield.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Anderson. We've been having continuous threats this 5 days now, and it's disconcerting that they keep doubling and tripling down with what we're asking them to stop talking about. Springfield is a good place. We're a wonderful people. We're not imploding on each other as far as a community. We're doing, we're really for each other in this community. We need help, not hate, and that's what we need from those that have the national stage.
So you've had elementary schools evacuated because of bomb threats for 3 days in a row. How many kids, families' lives is all of this affecting?
Well, if you look at our entire student body, you're looking around 6,000 to 7,000 students. And so it's just really mixes up a lot of the daily lives of our community. I want to thank Governor Mike DeWine, who's really stepped in today, announced new support for our schools. He wants kids back into schools where we don't want to, we continue to get these threats. There's been 33 threats by email, and none of them they've all been essentially false threats. So the State Highway Patrol and the state force that are here in town to make sure that our schools are secure and our kids are going back to school tomorrow.
And do you think that, do you think kind of tamp down on the threats, the logistical problems caused by all this national attention?
Well, it certainly is my hope that we come back to a community of peace. We're not a community without struggle, but I can say that we definitely would like to get back to focus on what normal life is here in town and focus on what we've been focusing on: our infrastructure, our school system, our healthcare, and bringing the community together to move forward.
We saw that video of the so-called Proud Boys, marching around with some flags. How many were there? Did that cause any issues?
Anytime a group comes into our town with the intent to not bring peace but disrupt, it causes issues. I'd say there was roughly about 20 individuals that came representing the Proud Boys, and there was also hate flyers that were distributed by another group. So it definitely is unrestful when that happens.
What are you hearing from constituents, including Haitian constituents?
Well, as far as the Haitian community, as a human being, I personally hate to see an entire community be, just blasted like this, and lies continuing to be said about a community. We have no evidence of the lies that have been said about them, or the things that have been said about them are just still lies. So we'd like that to stop. So at least part of the community that is here, under this current administration's policy, they're here, they're in our community. So we're trying to embrace the entire community and do the best we can as leaders.
It's been reported that the former president might be planning a visit to Springfield. I'm wondering if you've heard from the campaign at all. And what would the impact of something like that be right now in your town?
It would be extremely difficult if either one of the candidates came to our community right now, and I would discourage it if I had the opportunity, just because this is not a time to campaign in our community at the national level.
And in terms of the difficulties, separate from this, the actual difficulties because of the large number of people who are there legally but who have come, what are the resources you need to help cope with that?
I think the number one resource when we're asking for funding, I'd say we've pretty much focused in on translation services. Our critical care hospital, as well as our federally funded hospital, both are in deficit because of the expense of translation services. Our school systems need help with translation services, as well as our safety forces, to be able to communicate with those that they're trying to serve well. So that's kind of where we've been trying to focus in the funding. We've also had, realistically, we've had an uptick in reckless operation. And again, we had a program in coordination with the State Highway Patrol and our local law enforcement to help curb that, the reckless operation, and help assist in enforcing that.
And those translation services, is that something that would come from the state government, the federal government?
We've certainly asked for assistance from both, but either one that would be offering help and funding assistance, we would accept it.
I don't know if there's a question yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, but it was the state that stepped up with $2.5 million over the next 2 years to help fund our healthcare system, and that will primarily, I'm sure, be going towards translation services.
Well, Mayor Ryu, I appreciate your time tonight, and again, I'm sorry we're talking under these circumstances, but I wish you the best.
Thank you so much for having me on.